Yeah. So you kind of went back into the name when it was at $100 a share.
Mhm.
What was the trigger? Like, was it just the where it wasn't a value from a valuation perspective?
Yeah, the valuation had dropped off so much, especially relative to its performance and growth. Like I see the growth in this, and now the prospect of being disrupted has diminished significantly because they've been able to take over so much of the industry, and they're pioneers in the industry, of course, but when it comes to electrification of not just their charging stations but the way that they operate, their battery tech is amazing. So you can see that this is a very innovative company that has so many verticals. And under Elon's leadership, they've been able to capitalize on that. So anytime I speak to anyone, my biggest hesitation for not getting into Tesla in the past was that the valuation didn't make sense, because I was always like, will this company even survive? They have proven that they can survive and they can thrive, whether it's good times or whether it's bad times. Some people were saying, "Well, look, they're starting to discount their cars," and I'm like, "Yeah, but that also means that they're gaining a tremendous amount of market share." And then when you look at some of the other fundamentals that are working in their favor, like recently, this drop in lithium prices. This drop in lithium prices is big because now it just means that their operating margins are going to climb really fast. And what's really cool is that the way that they structured the deal with the lithium resource providers is that they have a floating rate contract. So it's one of those things where it's not like a fixed price contract at the highs, where now they're going to have to be paying like a crazy amount. So as the price of lithium goes down, those battery packs become cheaper, which means that one, it can support a cheaper model for the general public. But I think that's more than a few years away. But in terms of margins, their margins expand like crazy, and whatever discount, and at the same time, now they can actually do some discounting and take more market share away and eliminate these other competitors that are trying to rise up right now. So whereas some of these other companies are trying to make electric cars work, Tesla's already making it work, and they're doing it at a pace that's like makes way more economical sense than ICE cars. And yeah, I just like I said, for me, I think this is Tesla is like the Apple of 2010. A lot of people think that, hey, there's so, like there's already so many cars on the market. I'm like, dude, the entire world is out there. You know how many cars are out there in the world? Just it's crazy. And then on top of it, they're going into different verticals. They're going into trucks, they're going into semi trucks, the personal light vehicle market that they have a foot in. So it's at this point, Tesla is one of those companies that's very blue chip, and that you just it's better. It's a smart idea to just dollar cost average into Tesla, not look, and 10 years later you'll be fine. You'll be retired, ready to go. That's what I'm doing with my wife. My wife has a portfolio. One of the companies that I have is Tesla. I'm just like, babe,
Mm.
just invest every month, or technically every week, and just in some Tesla. She's a farmer, so she does well. So
Okay.
she doesn't. She's like one of those types of people that's not like, I don't really care about the stock market. Just tell me what I should buy, and we'll
Yeah.
leave it there. So I'm like, okay, Tesla, just buy some Tesla.
Gotcha.
But it's weird because she doesn't want to buy a Tesla. Like I told her, like this year, because we still have a gas car, and I want to like buy an electric car. So I'm like, hey, honey, let's look at a Model X or Model Y, and she's like, no, I don't want a Tesla. I want a Lexus electric. And I was like, babe, come
Why?
on.
Why does she want a Lexus?
I don't know. I guess she has a Lexus right now. She feels comfortable in the
She's
Lexus.
used to
Like
it.
she's used to it. And I'm like, there's a big difference. Like this is not going from a gas car to a gas car. This is going from a product to a very inferior product that's very well behind Tesla is right now. So she's like I said, it's gonna take some time convincing her, but I think I'll get there. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
technically, I'm the one that's gonna be making the decision. You know how it is. They think they have the decision making ability, but it's just us leading them to the
Babe, don't watch
water.
this. Don't watch this. Do you think you'll be able to get her to do a test drive? Like be like you
Yeah, yeah.
yeah?
I think
Yeah.
one of these weekends I'll just have her like, come on, dear, let's go get a test drive. I've been in a
Yeah.
Tesla before. It's amazing. That instant torque is, oh, you
It's
just it does
cool.
you can't, yeah, you can't replace that. You know.
Yeah. I really think it's so all those points you bring up, I mean, it really speaks to just how much the story has evolved from 10 years ago, you know? I mean, this name has been, for a period of time, for about 5 years between 2014 and 2019, boy, was it dragged through the mud. This thing
Yeah.
was going to fail 1,000 times over. The leader is insane, blah, blah, blah. There's just so much crap going on. And then
Mhm.
once they proved the thesis that it was going to be profitable, and very much so starting in 2019 into 2021, I think the
Yeah.
landscape really changed around the story and sort of why people were investing in it. But I
Yeah.
truly feel like the name, to your point, is just getting started. This is Apple
Yeah.
2010, I think, is a very good way of putting it. And
Yeah.
it's not because they're sort of like done. It's because they're just getting started. And the sort of
Mhm.
the total addressable market equation, I think, is so vastly misunderstood.
Mhm.
They have this target of 20 million units produced by the end of 2030, but per year
Yeah.
by the end of 2030. And I often get into very friendly arguments with other people on Twitter, Drew and Gary and other folks on Twitter, where I am very, very, very convinced, because I believe that I've done the due diligence, that 20 million per year by 2030 is not just achievable. Like, it will happen because it has to happen. And the reason why it
Yeah.
has to happen is when you take the cost of transportation and you lower it by more than half on a per unit basis, and you do so with a car, with a transportation unit, in this case a car, that is vastly superior than anything within its class, then what do you think is going to happen? People are
Yeah.
just not going to buy it. Of course they're going to buy it. And then you put
Yeah.
layer it on top of a car industry that has been stagnant for 40 years. I would make
Mhm.
the argument that car makers have been, basically, they have this sort of like, I really believe this behind the scenes handshake deal that nobody has done, but they kind of agree
Yeah.
with. Like, they incremental steps year over year, leverage the supply chain as much as possible. Don't make too many big changes because we don't want to disrupt the profitability. We want to keep it
Yeah.
smooth flowing. So disruption and innovation never happens in that industry, and that hasn't happened for 80 years, or 40 years rather, probably longer, to be honest. And then a new
Yeah.
player comes in and is like, "Yo, check this out! Boom! Here's a brand new product type." It's no longer like, oh, it just goes
Mhm.
faster. No, it's the whole experience has changed. And I think
Mhm.
that part of the equation is not well grasped. And then you
Yeah.
you layer on top of that this full self-driving technology that I really do believe this year will be quite transformational for the company. I
Yeah.
would expect analysts to start taking that seriously, and perhaps they'll start baking that into their models at some point. Not financial advice, but I feel like
Yeah.
we're almost there. And then you think about the density that they'll be able to achieve from those factories that are going to get them to 20 million per year. So Giga
Yeah.
Texas will probably do 2 million. Berlin's going to do a million. Shanghai's going to do 2 million. Mexico's going to do 2 million. Fremont's
Yeah.
doing 30% more than GM and Toyota were able to do combined when it was the NUMMI plant before Tesla bought it. So you
Yeah.
have all these things that are starting to stack up, where Tesla essentially has kind of 10 million per year run rate from the land they've secured. They don't have factories on
Mhm.
all of them yet, but they've secured land for 10 million already. So just throw up the
Yeah.
buildings, you're at 10 million, and then you just need five more factories at 2 million each to get to 20 million. You ain't that far away from 20 million. And all you have to do is
Yeah.
just pull the demand lever. And then people are like,
Yeah.
well, this never happened before. Toyota never sold 20 million. Volkswagen never sold 20 million. I'm like, that's because they never sold a Tesla.
Mhm.
And so once
Yeah.
Tesla sells a Tesla, what do you think is going to happen, right? I don't know. You tell me if I'm thinking about this incorrectly.
No, no, no,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. I think this is the same thing that played out in the 2010s with the phones, where if you remember when cell phones first came out, there were like so many manufacturers. There was Samsung, there was Apple, of course. Then you had Microsoft who had their own product. And then, like I said, there's like LG had some. There's so many different phone companies. They were manufacturing phones, but now you can see that they've all been eliminated thanks to the iPhone because it's such a big differentiated product that everyone loves. And I think Tesla is going to have a similar thing where I think there's like what 30, maybe 40 major car companies right now, and that might get consolidated down to like four or five. Because not everyone is going to be able to keep up with the scale, and the ones that keep up with it are going to have a hard time matching Tesla's pace. And what does
Sure.
that mean? That just means that there's going to be a lot more market share for Tesla to get into. And
Yeah,
also there's other things that Tesla has going for it that are big revenue drivers too, like their energy division, which I think is very underappreciated by a lot of people.
agreed.
When it comes to us moving off of fossil fuels, one of the biggest challenges, of course, has been what do you do when the wind is not blowing, or when the wind is blowing too much, or the sun is shining too much and it's not shining enough? Well, one of the things you need is batteries. Once you put batteries into the mix, and especially at the industrial level, it's a game changer for humanity itself. So I think eventually we are definitely going to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels, and Tesla is going to lead the charge in that. And I think eventually, whoever's getting in is going to do exceptionally well. I think a lot of people right now, they're scared of Tesla, saying, "Oh, you know what? Did I already miss the run up?" And for me, I don't think you missed the run up. I think this is halfway, if not maybe just a third of the way. And I think there's still a lot more room to grow. And when it starts to grow, you'll be asking yourself, why didn't I invest in Apple in 2010? Well, this might be your
Yeah.
shot this year. So
It's quite a fascinating name to track for sure. Again, not investment
yeah,
advice, but I wouldn't be
yeah,
surprised if this thing not only becomes the largest company in the world, but the largest company ever. It's like
yeah,
I draw parallels to the Dutch East Indian Company back in the 1600s or whatever. A
yeah,
horrific business model of transporting slaves, and that's why they
yeah,
were so huge. But it was kind of like they had this game-changing service for that time of the year, and that which allowed them to achieve like what was it, like a $10 trillion market cap or something, like inflation
yeah,
adjusted. If you look, kind of adjust back.
yeah.
So I don't know. I think Tesla has that kind of potential, but don't listen to me. Do your own diligence, everybody. So
Exactly.
um,
Yep.